of these events, and thank you again. My name is Mark Scarcelli. I'm on the faculty in the Political Science Department here on this beautiful campus on this beautiful evening. And as a member of the Kellogg Lectures Committee, I have the honor of introducing our guest speaker here in just a moment. Before we get to that, though, just a couple of very quick housekeeping details. If you have not done so already, please take an opportunity right now to silence or shut off your cell phones to minimize disruption. Also, in the very unlikely event of a room evacuation, please note the exit doors are on both sides of the room as well as behind you. Procedurally, very quickly, this evening we're going to have our distinguished guest's speech, of course, followed by a Q&A session. We're going to place microphones at the front side of each aisle on either end of the room here, and we'll ask those who want to participate by asking questions to simply line up on either side of the room. However, between the end of our guest's lecture and the beginning of Q&A, we're just going to take a very, very short break of about 2 minutes, and that is deliberately to give those who would like to leave at that time the opportunity to do so in a less disruptive manner. So please do think ahead a little bit about that. And following Q&A, our guest will stick around for a book signing, for those of you who have his book. It was for sale out there. I saw a few copies left as of a few minutes ago, so there might be some left if you'd like to grab a copy of the gentleman's book to have him sign it after the speech and Q&A this evening. All right, with that said, Pandit Dasa is an inspirational speaker, meditation teacher, and well-being expert. He has conducted stress management workshops and meditation sessions for corporations such as Google, Bank of America, Intel, Novartis, Columbia, and many other fine institutions. Through these workshops and practices of mindfulness, Pandit helps individuals lower stress and anxiety, increasing focus and productivity, and to develop positive perspectives on challenging situations. Pandit has spoken at a TEDx conference and has been featured on PBS, NPR, the New York Times, and he also writes for the Huffington Post. So please join me in welcoming Pandit Dasa.
Thank you so much.
And very quickly, as a token of our appreciation for him joining us this evening, we have this lovely plaque for the gentleman.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I've given many talks, but no one's ever announced that there's exit doors on either side in case there needs to be an evacuation. I've only heard that announcement on airplanes before, so I don't know if it's an earthquake thing, if it's California or what it is, but anyways, I guess now you know, and even I know where the exit doors are. So thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here, to be able to speak with you on the topic of mindful leadership. Some of you may know, might have read the bio, that I spent 15 years living as a monk in New York City. And while I lived as a monk in New York, a lot of people asked me, why'd you become a monk? And now that I'm no longer a monk, people are asking me, why are you no longer a monk? So I figured I can share with you a little bit of my own journey on how I became a monk and why, and what ultimately brings me to this point where I'm speaking on the topic of mindfulness and mindful leadership. So I grew up in Southern California. My parents migrated from India to this country in 1980. And actually, I grew up in Southern California in Los Angeles, Glendale to be exact, where my parents had They started off their career on Venice Beach by setting up a small booth on Venice Beach. I was selling gift items. I was 7 years old, just exploring American culture for the very first time, just playing basketball, learning to skateboard, learning to boogie board and surf, and all of these fun things that I was sort of introduced to. My parents worked really, really hard. They worked literally 7 days a week. There was no such thing as a day off because every day you had to work to put food on the table. So I think that happened for about 4 or 5, maybe even 6 years. And gradually and eventually they established a very successful multi-million-dollar jewelry business right in Los Angeles, California. And they ultimately ended up building a beautiful house on the hill. They built this from ground up. This is on the hills of Glendale, California, and there was nothing here but a hill, so they really just constructed the whole area. It took over a year to build this house, 6 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, a pool, a jacuzzi, waterfall, everything a nice California home should have, right? And this was my room right up there. I had a real postcard view of downtown LA. Literally, there was a postcard view of downtown LA from my window. But the early 1990s, my parents' jewelry business caught on fire. And the whole business burnt down, and because our entire life was being supported by that business, our life sort of fell apart financially. We ended up losing this house. We ended up losing the business and all the different properties and vehicles that we owned. It was a real turning point in our lives, and especially in my life. My dad decided to explore new business opportunities, and he learned that maybe he should go to East Europe, which was just coming out of communism. So he decided to pursue business opportunities in Bulgaria in the early 90s. And I don't know how many of you have ever been to a post-communist country in those days, but I'll give you a little flavor of what it was like. You really couldn't find anybody that spoke English. So when I wanted to call the US or India, I had to walk to the post office, write the phone number down, and then they would dial it because the operators didn't speak English. Taking a taxi was difficult. Buying food in the grocery store was difficult because there was the language was not similar in any capacity. There was, everything on TV was in Russian and Bulgarian. All the movies were a year or two old. I think they were just like pirated movies that were just being played on the theaters. There were no basketball courts. There was, I think, one tennis court at the end of the town where I was. So it was really everything that I was familiar with and comfortable with was really just sort of taken away. And I went from living in a house like this to a one-bedroom apartment in one of these types of buildings, right? So going from LA to this, I felt like I'd just gone back 50 years in technology. So after a couple of years of being in Bulgaria, we decided that, and this is really when my own meditation journey began. Right when the rug was pulled out from under me, I sort of fell flat on my face, really questioning why did this happen to me and what my purpose in life is, and what do I want to do with the rest of my life. So it was when everything was sort of topsy-turvy is when I really began my introspective journey for the first time in my life. After spending a couple of years in Bulgaria, we moved to the East Coast to New Jersey so we could be close to New York, where my parents trying to establish a clothing business, import-export business. I worked in the mortgage industry for a couple of years, and my joke is that I was doing mortgages in the mid-90s is what ultimately drove me to a monastery in India. I did that for a couple of years, and then I realized that I just needed to take a break from everything and remove myself from everything and just go and take a retreat and really figure things out for myself. So I went to a monastery in Mumbai, India. This was in around September of 1999. The idea was I was going to be there for a month. I needed to take a retreat as to break. The plan wasn't to become a monk or anything like that. So I went to this monastery in India, living with 40 monks. Everybody slept on the floor, on the hardwood floor with a thin, like, straw mat. And we were waking up at 4 in the morning, because from 5 to 8 were the meditation and other spiritual practices that we were all doing, and the rest of the time we were doing other simple services, serving one another, serving the community, serving food, and doing other kinds of things like this. Somehow, I fell in love with this lifestyle. I'd never really lived a life full of service in this capacity, and I really fell in love with it. So that 1 month turned into 6 months. I checked out a few other monasteries, moved back to the US, moved into a monastery in New York on the Lower East Side. I mean, you don't think there'd be a monastery on the Lower East Side. But there is. Everything is there on the Lower East Side. If you haven't been there, you should really go check it out. Within 5 minutes, you can find everything. Right next to our monastery in New York, there was a tattoo shop. So, you could come to the monastery, get a tattoo, whatever you want. Like I said, you can do everything in 5 minutes in New York. And then the next 3 or 4 establishments were all bars and nightclubs and things like that. So that's where I was living as a monk. I thought I'd live there for another 6 months, but I ended up spending a total of 15 years living as a monk in New York. And so here's a couple of pictures of me living as a monk in India. And this is me living as a monk in New York City. Of course, had to have a little orange flip phone. I wanted to make sure everything matched. My robes matched, my phone matched. I was always into making sure things looked good, even though I was a monk and wearing robes. So, when in New York, do as New Yorkers do, right? So one of the things that I was studying as a monk, and which is what I sort of teach in corporations and on college campuses, is when we talk about mindfulness, one of the first things we have to understand is the nature of the mind. And what is the mind? Right? How do we understand what the mind is? I like to compare the mind to a hard drive. The hard drive has a capacity to store millions and millions of files. So our mind stores so much data that we can't even imagine. Every time we see something, smell something, taste something, touch something, or feel something, it gets registered in our mind. But we can't remember all of this. Another way I like to compare the mind to is a smart device. Right? Now, on our smart device, we have so many apps. Right? And a lot of apps remain open. We don't close them. At least I'm really bad at closing out my apps. If I used Google Maps 2 weeks ago, it's still open. I don't go around closing them. So my wife usually has to go around closing all my apps. She's like, okay, you've got all these apps open. It's slowing your phone down. I'm like, okay, go ahead and close them out. So the same thing, our mind has a lot of apps open. And one of the, you know, it's like your phone comes with certain apps that you can't delete. Well, our mind also has certain apps that just you can't delete. One of those is like the money app. You're always thinking about money. Another one, real popular one, is the food app. We're always thinking about food. You're eating lunch, you're thinking about dinner. You're eating dinner, you're thinking about breakfast, right? So like when we were driving in here, I'm like, man, I hope there's some, looking around on Google Maps, I'm like, there's nothing around here. What are we going to eat? You know, there's just kind of like a little anxiety about the food app. So our mind is like, has so many different apps that are constantly open. But if we can close those apps out, what happens? The phone works better, the device works better. So mindfulness is about becoming aware of what apps are open right now, which ones are taking up my mental energy, and how to close them out so that I can focus on the things that I really need to focus on, so that I don't lose time and energy doing all kinds of things that I don't need to be worrying about. According to psychology today, an average person has between 25,000 and 50,000 thoughts every single day. That's, if you break it down per hour, that's 1,000 to 2,000 thoughts every single hour. So our mind is a very busy place. You know, if you try to go to, like when I was living in Manhattan, living on the Lower East Side, we were facing the avenue. So there was a lot of car noise and jackhammers in the middle of the night. You're just wondering, how did the city give permission to do this? They probably didn't. But there's so much noise, but I realized that the noisiest place is always in the mind. The busiest place is always in our mind. So the more we can control our mind, the more we have power over our mind, the more peaceful and happy we can actually be. So our mind functions in a couple of different ways. If it's a lot of times it's stuck in the past. It's thinking about the past. And unfortunately, it has a tendency to remember things and get stuck on negative things that have happened in our past. And it's hard for us to let go of those. So how many of you, just raise your hand if you're still sort of disturbed by something that happened over a year ago? Oh my gosh, everyone. Okay, don't worry, we're gonna meditate at the end to make you all feel a little bit better. Promise, we're gonna do some meditation. How many of you are bothered by something that happened over 5 years ago? Raise your hand, okay. All right. 10 years? All right. So, see, it's there, and it's hard for us to let it go. Now, you don't want to remember these things. If you could, you would choose to let them go because they're causing stress and they're causing anxiety. And sometimes they'll just pop up randomly. You're having a really good time, and all of a sudden it'll just pop up, a random thought that doesn't even affect your life anymore, and it's sort of now messing up your day. So we understand that our mind, we're not in control of our mind. Our mind is like a roommate, a crazy roommate that never shuts up. I don't know. Is everybody stuck with a crazy roommate? I don't know. So, right? And then it's almost like you let the roommate move in without checking references, right? So we have this roommate, and it just doesn't stop. And if it's not thinking about the past, it's worrying about the future, right? Raise your hand if you worry about the future. Right? Okay. My experience is the older you get, the more you think about the past. The younger you are, the more you're planning the future. Okay? So planning is good. Preparing for the future is good. But the thing that's not good is unnecessarily worrying about things that are probably not going to happen. Have you ever caught yourself doing that? Just thinking like, oh my gosh, what if this happens and if this doesn't happen and this could happen? And oh my God, I could lose my job. I could lose my house. I could lose my... Wait. It's just... You know, it snowballs. The mind has the tendency to magnify really small and insignificant things and turns them into something really big, and it's not even relevant and it's not even realistic. So for example, let's say you have an interview tomorrow morning. You could start worrying about it the night before. What if I don't wake up? Okay. What if there's too much traffic? What if I don't get... Okay. So that's not doing you any good, right? It's not doing us any good, but the mind is out of control and we can't stop it. There is a way to decrease that. So that's the important thing about mindfulness, is how to press the pause button, how to not let insignificant, irrelevant thoughts disturb our mind and disturb our life. That's a huge component of mindfulness. So one way to understand how much power the mind has over our body, right, is the concept of the nightmare. Anybody have a nightmare recently? Right? Okay, a few people. Right? So when you have a nightmare, you wake up and your heart's beating faster, you're breathing faster, and sometimes you can even be perspiring if it was really bad enough. Like maybe you saw a horror movie right before you went to sleep, and now you're being chased by the guy with the machete. And you're running and running, and then finally, before the machete hits you, you wake up. And you're just sweating, and your heart feels like it's going to jump out of your chest, and you realize there's no one there, but you're still really scared, because the mind created a false reality for you and made you believe it. Now, you can ask yourself, how many times during your day does your mind create a false reality for you? Maybe it's a perception of someone else. Maybe there's somebody who you think doesn't like you, which may not even be true, but your mind is now creating a whole movie around that, and how much this person doesn't like you, and how you're just going to unfriend them on Facebook and, remove them on LinkedIn and everything. And it may not even be true. It's just the mind creates a reality. But the point I'm making here with this example of nightmare, the mind created that reality. You were sleeping in your bed, completely still, but the mind created perspiration in your body. The mind increased your heartbeat. The mind made you breathe faster. So our mind controls our entire health. And that's why when we're talking about relieving stress through mindfulness, is to be able to tame the turbulent mind, because it is really responsible for our physical health. So here's one definition I'd like to use of mindfulness: becoming aware of our thoughts and emotions and bringing our mind to the present moment. It's the act of getting in touch with oneself. So how is this important, especially when we are going to take on a leadership role? Right? Becoming aware of our thoughts and emotions, it's very, very important, because whatever we're going through, it's going to affect every other interaction we're having. So for example, let's say you're off to work or school, and you had maybe a conflict or an argument before you left home. Now you're driving to work, you're already a little upset. Now you know that when you're upset and you're driving, that might affect how you interact with other drivers. Or if now you're sitting there and somebody honks at you, now you're even more upset. Now you get to work or school, how is that not going to affect your interaction with the other people around you? It will. But if we're aware that of our emotions in that moment, that, okay, I'm really upset, I'm frustrated, a few bad things have happened, I need to make sure this doesn't affect the next person I interact with. So even that awareness is important, because a lot of times things happen and we just keep pushing through, things keep happening and things keep piling on, and we don't stop to think about it, and we keep moving forward, and then it's affecting every interaction that we're having. So even if we're able to become aware of the different emotions that we're going through, that can help us interact, have the next interactions a little bit more positive, and so that we don't react emotionally because some negative things have happened. And also, getting in touch with oneself, especially for any kind of leadership role, even if it's not a corporate leadership role, if you're setting an example for someone, if someone's looking up to you, getting in touch with oneself means really asking ourselves, what is my motivation for doing what I'm doing? And especially if in a leadership role, why am I doing what I'm doing? Am I here to serve others, or am I here to be served? Am I here just to control everyone so that everybody can serve me? Or am I really here to bring the best out of everyone? And also, it's the ability to really constantly look at oneself honestly and understand what are the changes I need to make to become a better individual and a better leader. That's why I like Gandhi's quote, be the change you wish to see in the world. Right? We have to become that change, because it's almost impossible to change someone else. We've tried changing others, doesn't work. Others have tried to change us, that also doesn't work. Not only that, we've tried to change our own habits that we've had. right? There's habits that we have we're not proud of. We've tried to change them, and we can't even change ourselves, yet we try to change others. So be the change you wish to see in the world. That is really one of the signs of being a mindful leader. And so we can ask ourselves, what are some of the wrong reasons that people go into leadership? And I'm going to ask us to reflect also. Have we ever gone into a leadership position for the wrong reason? There's some basic wrong reasons that I've listed here. A lot of times people will go into a leadership capacity for the purpose of having power. If you have power, it gives you the ability to control others' lives. As you can see here, as the spotlight is pointing on you. Like some people just really enjoy the spotlight. But that's not the real reason to be going into leadership. Leadership, the purpose is to really serve others. So if we can ask ourselves, if we're in a leadership role now, or if we ever plan to be in, that what is my real motivation for being in a leadership role? Why do I want to become a leader? So that I can get all the recognition, I can get all the glory, or I don't really care about that. I just want to improve other people's lives. So one of the key things about being a mindful leader is to being able to ask ourselves this question throughout our lives, not just once or twice, on a regular basis, constantly asking myself, what is my motivation for doing what I'm doing? And one of the key things, one of the key traits of a mindful leader is that they're leading by example. Really doing the things that you're asking others to do. And some of the folks that come to mind, some very prominent personalities that come to mind, are Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. Right? Because they led the freedom marches personally. They didn't sit back comfortably while they had everyone else do the dangerous work. They knew that if they weren't out there in the front lines, people would lose inspiration. And because they led by example, look at what they accomplished. They have inspired the entire planet with what they did and what they accomplished. So it's so important for the leader to be visible to the workforce, to everyone around. And it's important for everyone else to see that the leader is with them, that there's not a huge gap between leadership and the rest of the workforce. That is such a key thing. I think that this image really describes the difference between a boss and a leader. You could see the boss in the back ordering everyone else, where the leader jumps up front and leads the charge. And again, we can ask ourselves, if we're in any kind of leadership capacity, or if we're just inspiring someone else, or even if you're a parent, which role, which model do I adopt more? Maybe sometimes it's a little bit of both. Maybe sometimes we're more the boss, sometimes more the leader. But really, it's all about asking ourselves that question. Which model am I following? So I'd like to play a short video. This video is about the CEO of Japan Airlines. Very unconventional method of leading. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video for you.
No wonder there's so much popular resentment these days against today's CEO compensation, all those perks we've been hearing about. Does any CEO anywhere set a good example? Barry Peterson in Tokyo has this Sunday Journal.
When Detroit's Big Three CEOs came begging for a bailout, they got a lecture.
Couldn't you all have downgraded to first class or jet pooled or something?
For arriving in their private jets, the CEO's perk of choice. Maybe they could learn something from the boss of Japan Airlines, who takes a city bus to work. Merrill Lynch CEO John Thain spent more than $1 million decorating his office. But Haruka Nishimatsu knocked down his office walls so people can walk up and talk. And he works from a desk with an old-fashioned wooden in and out box. But there is method to his anti-corporate perk lifestyle. It's about his employees. He told us there is no one person being on top and one person being on the bottom in an organization such as ours. Got an idea? Tell him at lunch in the company cafeteria, because he wants people to share. I go there, he says, to raise morale and motivation. And he motivates one-on-one, regularly popping into planes, chatting with flight attendants, even helping sort out the newspapers.
I'd like to just find what is going on
What's going on?
at the front line.
All CEOs say that service is important, but Nishimatsu goes a step beyond. He says that if you're having a bad experience, don't get angry with the people you're dealing with. Blame the person in charge. And this person in charge here walks the walk. Look up, and there's the boss. That flight boarded early, he says to the supervisor. That's good. For running the world's 10th largest airline, he doesn't make millions. One year, his pay was $90,000 because when he had to cut salaries, he also cut his own. My wife said, "What?" These days, all airlines are struggling. JAL is losing millions. Even at reliably profitable Southwest, sharing the pain works only if it's for everyone, says CEO Gary Kelly.
Certainly you would want employees to feel like they're sharing the sacrifices with their leaders. It will not work if leaders treat themselves one way and their employees another way.
This leader's efforts are keeping up morale in these recessionary times. He buys his suits at a discount shop because a boss who wears Armani would put himself at arm's length from his people. I feel close to him, says flight attendant Akiko Isobe. It's encouraging. America's super-rich CEOs are now under pressure to be a lot more like Nishimatsu and other Japanese CEOs who don't make the big bucks or get the fancy perks. I always thought a CEO was above us in the clouds, says this maintenance chief, but we're able to talk with him directly. With a simple philosophy, a boss is in the same boat as his people. You either share the work and sacrifice together, or the company may sink in this economic storm.
So that's definitely quite unconventional, the way he decides to run his organization. But perhaps there are some things that we can learn from this. You know, just being with everyone, sitting with everyone and eating, just making himself more accessible to everyone so there's not a big gap between him and everyone else. So just something for us to think about. Another person who I think sets a really nice example is Tim Duncan, power forward of the San Antonio Spurs, who retired about a year ago. Any fans of Spurs? Okay, all right. Well, we're not talking about like we're a sports fan, but just we're just going to look at his character here, okay? So one thing that really impressed me was, first of all, he stayed with the same organization for 19 years. That's rare in any capacity, right? 5-time All-Star, right? No ordinary feat. And is going to be into the Hall of Fame. And he cut his salary in half for the team. Right? Now, this is rare, right? When a star like this retires, they demand the maximum payout. He did just the opposite, because his pay cut, when he took the pay cut, it was $10 million a year. He did this for several years, so it was over $30 million less that he received. Right? Now, you may think, well, he's already made hundreds of millions, so what's 30 million? Okay, when you ever come to that, whatever your salary is right now, okay, just imagine giving up 50%. Imagine giving up 10% of it, right, to someone else, because that's what happened. He did the sacrifice so the team could bring on LaMarcus Aldridge and other younger players. And do you know, the Spurs have been in the playoffs all 19 years? I don't know which other organization has done that. Maybe there's a few, but I don't know. So just something to think about. He's not thinking of his own self. He was thinking of the team and the organization. So a leader should be willing to make that kind of sacrifice. Very important component of mindful leadership is appreciation and recognition. According to the Huffington Post, appreciation motivates employees to work harder, and it prevents them from having a wandering eye. How does it feel when you've been working really hard and somebody comes up and appreciates what you've done? Doesn't it feel good? Right? It feels great. And how does it feel when you've been just really working day and night, overtime, weekends, project is done, it's successful, no one says anything. It's almost like, yep, you were expected to do that, and here's your paycheck. A paycheck is good, but it's not always enough. Right? So it's so important to be appreciated, because we have sort of a human need to be appreciated for the things that we've done, and it's important to appreciate. So the question we can ask ourselves, we can all think of a bunch of times when we haven't been appreciated, either by friends or family or coworkers, but let's ask ourselves this question: when was the last time that we appreciated a colleague, a fellow student, a family member? When was the last time that we appreciated someone? Can we be better at appreciating others? So that's something to think about, right? On a regular basis, appreciating others. And especially if you're in a leadership role and you have to give negative feedback, because every time we give negative feedback, it's like withdrawing from that emotional bank account. It hurts. The other person, you sort of hurt that relationship a little. Even if it needed to be said, it sort of hurts that relationship a tad bit. So we want to make sure that there has been enough appreciation before some negative feedback had to be given, some criticism had to be given, because that will allow that person to hear what you're saying. Because if we're just doing the criticism, every time we talk to a person, it's only the negative, then that relationship is going to collapse, and you're going to have a negative balance in that bank account. And so if we can appreciate more, then we really want to create a culture of appreciation, and where we can actually learn to celebrate and appreciate the success of others. Because what happens is when an environment, whether corporate or in your college campus, when an environment becomes very competitive, we're no longer so happy to see others succeed. It can almost be where we're happy when others fail. But we don't want to be cultivating that culture where we're unhappy to see others succeed and happy to see others fail. And this is a tough one, but we can ask ourselves, when someone is competing with us for something and they succeed, am I unhappy at that moment? Do I wish negative for them? So these are things we can ask ourselves, and really we do want to be able to celebrate each other's success. That's the culture we want to create. And if we can have that culture, there'll be so much more harmony, and it'll create a much greater level of teamwork. It'll create stronger teamwork, meaning that we're supporting one another and we're encouraging one another. So I want to just take an example from nature about teamwork. So I want to look at the redwoods. Right? So these are some of the tallest trees on the planet. Right? They're about 200 to 300 feet tall. They can go from 8 to 20 feet in diameter, and they can live for hundreds of years, and some have lived for thousands of years. What's interesting is a tree that's 200 to 300 feet tall should have very deep roots. But these trees have very shallow roots. They go from like 6 to 12 feet. Right? And these are massive, massive trees. So how do they survive all the storms and all the challenges that come? Their roots spread out, and they grab the roots of other trees. So there's an entire network of trees holding on to each other, and therefore they can weather any kind of storm. So we can learn so much just from nature, of teamwork. We don't have to just be the best one, whereas if we learn to hold on to each other and support one another, everyone can succeed, and that's the mentality I think we want to be able to develop. And according to the Harvard Business Review, positive social connections at work produce very highly desirable results. And some of these results are people get sick less often. They experience less depression. Of course, positive social connections will do that. They learn faster and remember longer, display more mental acuity, and they perform better on the job. So this is the culture we want to develop, where we want to have almost a positive community environment at work. It keeps people happier at work. And if people are happier, then they'll be more productive and more positive. And that means the retention levels will be better. Humility. You might almost think that humility does not belong in a corporate environment. How are we even talking about humility when we talk about leadership? Because when we think of the word humility, we might think, oh, that's a person who's humble, lacks confidence, is not going to be able to earn the respect of others, their peers. But really, that's not what humility is. Humility, according to, there's a nice definition in Forbes, a humble leader is secure enough to recognize his or her own weaknesses and is able to seek the input and talent of others. Don't have to feel that you're always right. It's okay to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness to ask for help. It's not a sign of insecurity. We shouldn't be insecure if someone else has the answer. And according to Ken Blanchard from the 1 Minute Manager, I like what he says of humility. It's not to think less of yourself. It's to think of yourself less. That means really thinking of others' needs more than we think of our own needs. And of course, how important it is to be a good communicator. It's almost impossible to be a good leader without being a good communicator. And communication is all about listening. So really think dialogue, not monologue. I think we've all been in conversations where the other person is just speaking at us and we hardly get a chance to get a word in. And maybe we've done that to others. You know, we're not able to recognize when we do the same thing. It's easy to recognize when someone else makes the mistake, but we might have done that to others as well. So really think dialogue. That means listen to what other people are saying as well. Don't try to change opposing opinions. Try to understand them. Because the moment someone disagrees with us, we go sort of on the defensive. We're trying to convince them now because someone disagreed with us. It hurts the ego. I'm right. But really, it's all about taking that moment, taking a breath to really hear what the other person has to say. What are they trying to say? Because there could be a very important message in there that they're trying to communicate, but we're just not taking the time to really understand them. And if we're not taking the time to understand them, then we won't be able to read between the lines. What's not being said? What's not being said? So reading between the lines, are we really reading their facial expression? Are we understanding their body language? So that means really being mindful of ourselves and the other person. To really have thorough communication and replacing ego with empathy, really putting ourselves in the other person's shoes. To really understand where they're coming from, why they're saying what they're saying. Really putting ourselves in other people's shoes is a real powerful way to improve our communication. Now, I'm going to provide a simple communication formula. This will help us all communicate better. Ready? And here it is. Okay. So, what this individual is telling us is that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Just think about that. That's a pretty deep and profound thing right there. 2 ears and a mouth. We take it for granted because that's what we come with, right? Now, we're being told that we should be listening twice as much as we speak. If we use our ears and mouth in those proportions, our communication will get better and our relationships would get better. Right? But we use them in the opposite proportion, and that's where we find ourselves in trouble a lot. Now, the other thing is, our ears are naturally open, and our mouth is naturally closed. Like everyone's mouth is closed right now. Unless someone's yawning. No, everyone's mouth is closed, yeah. So, you have to endeavor to open your mouth, right? But the ears are naturally open. So we're being told that this is what really needs to be used a lot. And actually, recently, my wife complimented me on my ability to hear, and she said, wow, when she saw me putting the slide together, she said, wow, your ears are always really, really open. I'm like, oh, thank you. And she said, yeah, everything goes in one ear and out the other. I'm like, all right, I need inspiration. I'm preparing a presentation. I need you to encourage me right now. So she's here in the audience, but I'm not going to point her out because she'll get really embarrassed. Okay. All right. So I'm going to give you another communication formula. This one I learned from the monks. Okay. This one I learned from monks. So that whenever you communicate, especially if it's something sensitive, even if it's not, there's 4 criteria we can try to meet when we do any kind of communication. The communication should be truthful. It should be beneficial in some capacity or another. Let's make it in such a way that it doesn't disturb the other person. Can we be that thoughtful that it doesn't disturb the other person? Because sometimes you're like, I don't have time, we're just going to say what needs to be said. Yeah, but if you hurt someone's emotions, especially if it's in a work situation, how productive do you think they're going to be when they get back to their desk? Now they're upset. And finally, can it be pleasing? So you might, it may not always be possible to meet all 4 criteria, but can we take a moment, mindful moment before any especially sensitive communication to think about, is it truthful? Am I sure that it's true? Is it going to help them? Okay, it's going to help them. How can I say this now so it doesn't disturb them and doesn't uninspire them, but actually maybe they're even pleased? So that could take a lot of time. But being a mindful leader means that we're mindful of how we communicate as well. So perhaps we can use this in our next communication and just think about at least meeting 3 of these criteria. And maybe we can meet all 4. Just imagine how positive our communication would be if we could do this more often. And having balanced emotions, a key component of mindfulness and mindful leadership, because if we're not controlling our emotions and we lose our cool, what happens is when we lose our cool, our intelligence shuts off. And then we say things and do things that hurt relationships in a way that you could destroy a relationship for the rest of your life. Right? So anger is one of those things that we have to be really, really careful of, because once we get angry, we start saying things and doing things that can really, we could regret things, and we probably all had that experience where out of anger, we reacted and we responded. Especially if somebody sends a sensitive email, maybe they criticize you, and you're like, oh, I can't believe this, and you hit reply, and you start typing away. Wrong time to send a message. Wrong time to send a message. Especially communication over email or texting when you're upset should not be done for a good amount of time until you've completely cooled off and regained your objectivity. So all of these things can be helped with mindfulness. And that's what we want to talk about, how it can help us. So according, in the past, people have thought, and maybe some people still think, that it's something spiritual and religious because it's coming from like the Eastern traditions. And every time you see a Hollywood movie, who's meditating? It's the monks, right? Of course, nowadays, a lot of the movies have these like super kung fu monks that are just beating everyone up, right? But that's what they show in the movies. If someone's meditating, it's some guy in his orange robes with a shaved head sitting and meditating. But now, corporations and a lot of different industries are using it to become more positive and productive and less stressed. According to Forbes, it can help make you more productive. According to the New York Times, it can enhance creativity and memory. According to Psychology Today, it decreases anxiety, depression, and stress. And according to Harvard Business Review, it boosts emotional intelligence. And this is for those who do it on a regular basis. And also, according to the Harvard Business Review, mindfulness can literally change your brain. And it's talking about the anterior cingulate cortex, which is right here. It sits behind the frontal lobe. And it's responsible, it's associated with self-regulation, the ability to purposely direct attention and behavior. So this means really having control of your behavior and your attention, so that our attention and mind don't wander all over the place, especially during important moments in our life. It can also help suppress knee-jerk responses, right? Sometimes we just react. It can help us suppress that. And how important is that in any relationship, in any capacity? Now, those with a damaged ACC show impulsivity and unchecked aggression. Now, you might be thinking, you know a few people in your life with a damaged ACC. But let's not go ahead and judge anybody right now. But those who have meditated on a regular basis show superior performance on tests of self-regulation, and they're better at resisting distraction. A video from Scientific American, about 2 minutes, sort of recapping some of the research on mindfulness.
Researchers have known for decades that meditation can improve someone's physical and mental health. It can relieve stress, lower blood pressure, and lift someone's mood. But only in the last 10 years have neuroscientists taken a serious look at the changes in brain structure underlying some of meditation's benefits. Like everything else we do, meditation rewires our neural circuits, pruning away the least used connections and strengthening the ones we exercise most. Studies looking for signs of these changes usually focus on mindfulness meditation, which challenges people to keep their attention fixed on their thoughts and sensations in the present moment. Scientists acknowledge that many of these studies are small and not ideally designed, but at this point, researchers have gathered enough evidence to be confident that their findings are not just flukes. Experiments suggest that Buddhist monks have really robust connections between scattered regions of their brains, which allows for more synchronized communication. Expert meditators also seem to develop an especially wrinkly cortex, the brain's outer layer. We depend on the cortex for many of our most sophisticated mental abilities, like abstract thought and introspection. Several studies have confirmed that meditation can increase the volume and density of the hippocampus, a seahorse-shaped area of the brain in the middle of the skull that is absolutely crucial for memory. And although areas of the brain responsible for sustaining attention usually shrink as we age, meditation counteracts this decay. An increasing number of studies show that meditating for as little as 12 to 20 minutes a day for several weeks can sharpen the mind. In these studies, meditators have scored higher on tests of attention and working memory, which is the ability to temporarily store and manipulate information in one's mind. Some lifelong meditators in their 50s and 60s can even outperform 20-somethings on tests of visual attention. So if you're interested in trying meditation, you should probably start as soon as possible. For Scientific American's Instant Egghead, I'm Ferris Jaber.
So they're recommending 12 to 20 minutes. I even just recommend to start with 5 minutes, because 12 to 20 minutes can be even a challenge for a lot of folks. So as I've mentioned that corporations are bringing meditation into their organizations to help people reduce stress, reduce anxiety, reduce depression, improve positive behavior, improve happiness, improve productivity. And Mark Bertolini, the CEO of Aetna, introduced yoga and meditation into his organization because he had a near-death experience he had a really bad skiing accident in which I believe he broke his back, and they weren't sure if he was going to survive, but he did survive, and he used meditation and yoga to cope with the pain. It really helped him. So he introduced it to Aetna, and over 13,000 employees have participated in the program, and those who have participated they're saying that there's 28% less stressed, they're sleeping better, and that they've gained 62 minutes of productivity per employee per week. So this is in the New York Times. The article is called A CEO's Management by Mantra. So it's coming into not just the corporations, but all walks of life. Even the military is using meditation, high schools and elementary schools are using meditation. The athletic world is also using meditation. The Seattle Seahawks have used meditation. Phil Jackson used it when he was with the Bulls and the Lakers. Kobe Bryant talks about meditating, and this is Ariana Huffington from the Huffington Post. She promotes meditation a lot. Oprah's talking about it. You have Mark Benioff of Salesforce, CEO of Salesforce. He talks about meditation and encourages it within his own organization. And since this is Lakerland, I thought I'd just play a short video about Kobe Bryant.
I meditate every day. And I do it in the mornings, and I do it for about 10 to 15 minutes. And I think it's important because it sets me up for the rest of the day. You know, it helps me. It's like having an anchor. You know, if I don't do it, I feel like I'm constantly chasing the day, as opposed to being able to be controlled and dictate the day. Not that you're calling the shots on what comes forward, but the fact that I am set and ready for whatever may come my way. You know, I have a calmness about whatever comes my way and a poise, and that comes from starting the morning off with meditation.
So a lot of people do it in the mornings. He says he does it in the mornings, but pretty much I think that is the best time as a monk. Obviously, I was doing it early in the mornings as well, but I think any time of the day that you can find time, whatever works for you, because not everyone's a morning person, right? So some of you may not be able to do it in the morning before you go to work. Maybe you can do it during your lunch break. Maybe you can do it before you go to bed. And I would say 5 minutes a day is a great way to start. So there's a variety of different types of meditations and mindfulness practices. There's breathing exercises, focusing exercises, visualizations, and mantras. So mantras are more sound vibrations, which is something that I don't really teach in the corporations because it may come across a little bit spiritual, because you're reciting certain words over and over again. So what I teach are the breathing and the focusing techniques. How many here have done some kind of meditation at some point in their lives? Okay, a good amount of you. So what I'd like to do now is guide you through about 10 minutes of breathing and focusing techniques, mindfulness techniques. And these are techniques that you can use in the morning, before you go to school, before you go to work, before an exam, or if you're stuck in traffic and you're getting to someplace important, you can use it in that time. Obviously, you won't close your eyes at that time, but you can at least change your frame of mind, remain calm. So it can be used, and if you're having a hard time sleeping, you could use it before you go to sleep. So you can use it in almost any sphere of your life. So should we go ahead and do about 10 minutes of it? Yeah? Okay, all right. I like the enthusiasm for everyone to meditate. So go ahead and sit comfortably and just close your eyes and put your feet flat on the floor. And try to come into the present moment, keeping your eyes closed. Just feel the weight of your body pushing down into the chair. Now feel the weight of yourself leaning back into the chair. Now feel your feet pushing down into the floor. Now feel all three simultaneously, the feet on the floor, the body pushing down into the seat, and leaning back into your chair. Now let's begin to take a few deep breaths, breathing in and out just through our nose, if possible. So take a real deep breath in such a way that you fill your lungs completely. And when you exhale, try to exhale completely and thoroughly emptying out the lungs. And as you're breathing in and out through your nose, each time you breathe in, notice that the inhalation is cooler than the exhalation. And the exhalation is a little warmer because the body has warmed up the breath. Deep breath in, fill the lungs with that cool breath. And as you exhale, notice the exhalation is warmer. If your mind begins to wander or plan, just bring it right back to the breath. It's normal for the mind to wander. Stay focused and in the present moment. Now let's do a countdown of our breathing, counting down from 12 to 1. The goal is to see if we can keep our mind focused on the present moment. Breathe in, 12. And exhale, 12. Deep breath in and deep breath out. Inhale, 11. And exhale, 11. Inhale 10. Exhale 10. Inhale 9. And exhale 9. Now from 8 down to 1, continue breathing and counting down on your own, keeping your mind focused on your breath. Try not to plan. Stay focused. Now breathe in for a count of 2, 1. Now hold your breath. 2, 1. Exhale. 2, 1. Now hold your breath after exhaling. 2, 1. Breathe in. 3, 2, 1. Hold your breath. 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 3, 2, 1. Hold your breath. 3, 2, 1. Breathe in. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold your breath. Keep your body and shoulders relaxed. 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 1. Breathe comfortably. Now continue the same exercise of breathing in, holding, exhaling, and holding for a count of 5, 6, all the way up to 8 on your own. Keeping your body relaxed, especially when you hold your breath. Staying focused. Deep breath. Don't forget to breathe deeply. And also exhale deeply and thoroughly. Now bring your awareness to your forehead, breathing comfortably. Center your awareness in between your eyebrows. Take a slow, deep breath in. And as you exhale, release any tension you have in your forehead. Now let's go ahead and look inward into our mind and become an observer of our mind and an observer of our thoughts. Don't engage with your thoughts, just observe the different thoughts that are going through your mind and the different plans and thoughts that are going through your mind. But don't get absorbed in any one thought or plan. You're just an observer taking inventory. With the next 3 breaths, deep breath in, and with each exhalation, just empty your mind of all thoughts. Let your mind become like an empty cave. Deep breath in and exhale out all the thoughts that are in your mind. With the next deep breath, as you exhale, release any tension you have in your eyes and your face. Relaxing all the tension in your face, relaxing the tension in your mouth and jaw, letting your jaw drop down and letting your tongue slip down to the bottom of the mouth. Just relaxing your face. Your face becomes very tense throughout the day. Now bring your awareness down into your heart. See if you can pick up on the actual beating of your heart. Sitting very still. Take a moment to think about how the heart's working 24/7 for us. And how does it get the ability to beat nonstop? We don't have to plug it in every single night, yet it keeps functioning. Just take a moment to appreciate the heartbeat. And while we're in this space in the heart, let's take a moment to just feel grateful for the positive things that are happening in our life and some of the positive people in our life that are encouraging us and supporting us and inspiring us. Just feel grateful for them and appreciate those moments. Now let's see if we can do something a little more difficult. Can we take a moment to send some kindness and compassion to people with whom we've had some difficulty in our life? Can we send some kindness and compassion to them? The idea is if we can change our consciousness and approach towards others, then there's a better chance that they can also change their consciousness and approach towards us. Take another slow, deep breath in, a couple slow, deep breaths. And you can gently bring your awareness to your eyes, keeping them closed still. And take the next 10 seconds to very gently and gradually open your eyes. So take the entire 10 seconds to slowly open your eyes. So welcome back. Most of you, welcome back. Some of you are still in a state of deep meditation that I can see, which is normal. It is very normal if you do sometimes doze off, because the body is more tired than we realize, actually. And so the moment we get a chance to relax you, the body just sort of, it needs it. So I want to take this time now. Is it time for some Q&A? We can take some questions, or if you want to.
Okay, so as promised, before our question and answer period, we're just going to take about a 2-minute break if anyone needs to excuse themselves. Then we will line folks up on either end.
Thank you. I do have some meditations on my website here, and you're welcome to tweet me if you like about your experience of the meditation that you had today. Yeah, go for it.
All right, those who would like to ask our guests some questions, we've got a microphone set up at the front on each side of the room. One over here, one over there. We ask you to please line up, and we'll do a little back and forth Q&A for about 25 minutes or so. And I find when we do this, there's usually a little hesitation. Everybody's shy at first, and then once people start lining up, we run out of time for everybody else. So don't be shy. All right, please go ahead and line up at either microphone, and we'll get started here in just a moment. Yeah, and those of you seated towards the back of the room, there are now a lot more seats up front if you want to scoot forward and get a little more, get closer to the front of the room.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready, we do a little back and forth if anybody lines up over here.
Okay.
in about 25 minutes.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
All right, starting with the gentleman on this side of the room.
Hello? Is this working? Okay. Thank you very much for taking us through that guided meditation. It was very good. I have a question about meditation. I've done a lot of guided meditations just from videos from YouTube and a couple of other areas, and I was wondering, I've always found that I was able to better meditate from a guided meditation and not just on my own. Is there a particular reason to do either one? Are there benefits to one more than there are the other, or is it just up to your own choice on how to do it?
I think for most people, it's a great question. You know, is it better to do guided or on your own? What's the difference? I think when we're starting out, just like with anything, a guide is helpful, right? Just like if you start to do yoga, I remember when I first started doing yoga, and I started doing it on my own, I was thinking what posture to do next and how's my legs supposed to go. And I was thinking so much that it was kind of hurting the practice. So with meditation especially, it's helpful when you have a guide, just like then you don't have to think about what you're going to do next. You just have somebody's voice guiding you, and that can help you go deeper. Like that's what I notice is it's much easier for people just to hear someone else's voice and be guided through the process. I personally don't use guided meditations because I've been doing meditation for about 18 years now, and I have a set routine that I do every single day. And when you have that set routine, it becomes easier. But if you need to use guided meditation, it's not a sign of weakness. It's not like, oh, I need to depend on someone. No, it's totally fine. That's why there's so many apps out there, so many YouTube videos out there, and so many meditations out there. Take advantage of them. I think they're really, really helpful. So I think we can definitely use them to, especially getting started in our meditation practice. Yeah. Oh, over here, yes.
Hello, my name is Zane. I'm a first-year student, and I want to say thank you so much for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. My question would be, to reach like a sort of mindful leadership, what are some personal struggles you had to go through to understand it more? Because it is a hard process to get through, and one day I hope we can all achieve that, but sometimes there are those barriers. How do you break those barriers?
Well, first of all, I definitely don't want to make it sound like I've fully, perfectly achieved everything that I'm talking about. This is one of those things that you're working on all the time. Sometimes I'm more mindful in my communication, sometimes I'm less. And then I catch myself, I'm like, okay, I should have spoken in a different way. I should have been more thoughtful in what I just said. But the more you do it, the mind becomes trained to catch yourself. The point is to catch yourself when we didn't do it and to acknowledge it and to admit that, yes, I wasn't mindful right now, and next time I want to do better. Right? So that's the thing, to constantly look at oneself and wanting to make the change. The desire to change and improve on a regular basis. As long as we don't lose that desire, we will keep progressing forward. But if we ever think that, yeah, I figured it out, now I'm a mindful leader, now I'm a mindful person, the moment we think that, right there, that means we're going to become comfortable. And that means we're not going to learn as much. So mindful communicating, appreciating, these are all habits that we can develop. Right? And so I think that the mindfulness practices, the ones I sort of guided everyone through meditation, this sort of help us give us an awareness of our mind. What's really going on in our mind? What's going on in our emotions? How am I reacting to things? How do I respond when things are difficult, right? So all of these practices, this introspection, if we keep doing this on a regular basis, we will gradually get better. And is there a, how long will it take? It all depends on each individual. How much we want it. Right? And how much time are we dedicating each day to it? Are we taking at least 5-10 minutes every day to do this? And are we reflecting about our day? If we had a day, do we sit back and say, okay, how was this day? How did I do today? Was I very mindful, very little mindful? How did I do? So just sort of like taking time out to introspect and reflect, and every day and every week and every month and every year, we can continue to grow in that way. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Brenda, and I'm an alumni of Cal Poly Pomona. When I chose to go to college, it's to be able to be a better person. And me and my husband have children, a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. And so all these concepts that I'm learning about meditation and how to be a better person, how can we introduce meditation to children? That way they can grow up to be healthier people.
So how do we introduce it to children? I think one good way is to meditate with them. That's, I think, really important. Like the whole family sort of does it together. And you can't expect little kids to do it for too long. I mean, you can't even expect adults to do it for too long, from my experience. So with them, without, the key thing is to not push them. So they don't feel like they're being pushed into it, that they're being forced into it. You can even make it like a minute or two, so that they start becoming aware of their mind. You can even say, so what did you think about during this meditation? Oh, I thought about buying this toy, or I thought about this kid at school who I don't get along with. Okay, so now they're aware of what they're thinking about. And how did that make you feel? I felt angry. Okay, so now they're verbalizing what they're thinking and what they're feeling. And can you just imagine as they get older how like aware that individual is going to be, and especially when they deal with others, they'll know that, oh, this person might be feeling this or might be thinking this. So keep it short, keep it simple, keep it fun even, and do it together as a family. I think that could be very, very powerful. Not like go to your room and meditate. Obviously, that's not going to. There was one article, and you can look it up. There's one school that replaced detention with meditation.
Yes, I saw that.
Right, you saw that, and that's a really great, and it really changed the kids' behavior and everything. So I think make it a family time thing. Keep it short so they don't get bored of it, and they don't feel it's being imposed on them, and short and sweet, and then gradually you can build on it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Hi, yes.
My name is Nancy. Thank you. Your fact that we have, I think it was 15,000 to 25,000?
Yeah, according to this article in Psychology, 25,000 to 50,000 thoughts a day.
That really resonated with me because I think a lot.
That's a good thing, too.
It was so scary because I guess when I heard that number, I was like, oh, I guess my question would be, when you find yourself thinking a lot, is the approach to it to think less, or, because sometimes I feel that I get lost in my own thoughts. And I also read that, it's good to just pull yourself out of it. I guess that's what I've come to so far. And
okay.
And then, I'm not sure what to do with that fact.
Okay. Well, the fact in itself is just, again, it's raise awareness. It wasn't meant to scare you. But, the mind is a very interesting place. It's a very interesting place, and we don't think much about it. It controls our entire health. Stress is a product of the mind. Stress is basically us misunderstanding something or worrying about something that we don't need to worry about. I was at this conference where Michael J. Fox said something really deep I really appreciate. He's like, when you worry about something that's going to happen tomorrow or the day after, you're stressing yourself out when you're worrying about it before it's happened, and when it happens, it's again. So you double your stress. Yeah. So, you know, when this is the thing that controls our stress and anxiety and our health, but we don't spend any time dealing with it. How many of us have been taught from childhood, oh, that we, just like you exercise, everybody talks about eating healthily, eating good food and exercising, but no one ever talks about exercising the mind. And if that's exercised, the rest of our health and emotional well-being will be so much better. So you can't really stop yourself from thinking these thoughts. The mind is on autopilot. You know? It's already thinking stuff now as you're even asking me these questions in the background. And you're not even aware that it's doing that. It's always doing it, nonstop. Like, my mind's thinking about stuff in the background as well, even though I'm very actively engaged in answering your question. There's stuff in the background that's on my mind that it's sort of like it's on the back burner. So you can't stop it. But what I do is, when it does start to do this, I just take a moment to pause and I'm like, are these thoughts actually helping me right now? And a lot of times you realize it's not helping me. A lot of the things we're thinking about are completely irrelevant. They won't even impact our life in a positive way. So in that moment, you can almost try to just press the pause button. Say, okay, pause. All right, take a few deep breaths. Like, which of these thoughts do I really need to worry about? Like closing out the apps. So become aware that you're doing it. Press the pause button. Take a few deep breaths. And just analyze which of these are really helping me and which of these thoughts are really irrelevant. And that in itself will be a bit of an aha moment, I think. And then we get into the practice of doing that, then we can slowly learn to close out those unnecessary apps that are open in our mind. So we can start focusing on the things that we sort of need to focus on. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that
did.
did.
Okay, all right, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I particularly appreciated the moments of meditation that you brought into a very hectic week. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
My question pertains to your strategies for practicing leadership and effective communication, because not all of us are our own bosses. We are constantly working with colleagues, collaborating with others. So how would you suggest bringing up those strategies in something like a staff meeting to fellow colleagues and ideally superiors?
Oh, to superiors. Well, you better do some meditation before bringing it up to your superiors. And I guess you'd have to analyze what your relationship is with your superiors. You know, if there's been an open relationship where you can sort of discuss things, then obviously it's going to be easier. And if it hasn't been that culture, then you may want to be, I guess, a little careful about sort of bringing it with your superiors. You know, I think that to bring it up to your superiors, you may want to approach someone else who you are comfortable with, who maybe has a relationship with the superior, who can communicate that as opposed to going directly, because that could jeopardize your own position, you know. So, but if it's sort of a staff meeting where it's sort of peers and you can discuss it, I don't see why it just can't be discussed. You know, take some time out and talk about it. One thing that I sometimes recommend in corporations is before a meeting, and some may be open to it, some may not be. You know, you could show some scientific research on meditation and how it helps organizations, and maybe even starting off with a 5-minute meditation. Just taking a few deep breaths, because sometimes you get in there, everybody has an agenda. Everybody's coming in with their content that they want to present. Not everybody, but a lot of people. And so maybe everybody's in the mood to present, but not in the mood to hear. So maybe just taking a moment and taking a few deep breaths. And again, if you can get everyone's buy-in on it, you know, and maybe showing that video or something, showing the benefits of mindfulness. And then even taking a few minutes to just having everybody meditate on and appreciating the contributions of the other individuals in the room. Because we're all sort of just very focused on ourselves and what we're doing and what we've done and what we've accomplished. But giving everybody a moment to think about the positive things everyone else is doing in the room, that just changes the whole mood of the meeting. And then I think a lot more can be discussed. So that's those are some thoughts, but it would be easier to answer that if you know the dynamic of the group, sort of. But I think if you can get people to start off the meeting and not opposed to just kind of diving in, but something on a more positive note, feeling grateful and appreciating the other internally, just appreciating the other, that creates a more positive tone, I feel, to get the thing started. Does that help? I hope that helps a little bit.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Laura, and my question is revolved around leadership. So culturally, our leadership is focused around males. So I saw a lot of that in the pictures and the videos. How does mindfulness leadership, or what is the difference, or how do you apply it differently with women, or women in leadership?
I mean, the things that we talked about are universal, I feel. They're absolutely universal. Communicating, appreciating others, leading by example. This is something we can all do, men or women. I don't think it has any impact on our gender, because these are things that can improve us as leaders, and it can set a better example for everyone else. So, and the practices are also very universal. The practices that I walked everybody through, they're also very, very universal. So I personally don't think there's a difference in the application of these techniques for men or for women. Everyone can apply them very equally, and like I talked about, like Oprah Winfrey and Ariana Huffington, they're promoting it very strongly. So I think it's universal, these principles. So I'm not sure how much more, how else I can, if you want to ask something else, then I can try to address.
I think it's more in regards to, let's say, corporate world, or who are in these leadership positions, and it's mostly males.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's true. Right now it is mostly men, but I think that what we can do is everybody has the ability to change themselves. Right? And that's what Gandhi says, be the change you wish to see in the world. So what we can do, if we don't like a leadership model, at least what we have the power to do, we may not have the power to change that, but we can change ourselves. You have the ability to develop these qualities and inspire the other people around you with the development of these qualities to further develop those qualities in themselves. Because all we can really do is make the change in ourselves. We may not have the capacity to change others, especially in leadership, but for the day you prepare yourself, so when you become that leader, maybe you already are, then you set a better example that we don't make the same mistakes that those leaders made, and we can be more mindful and thoughtful and compassionate as we interact with the people around us and the people below us. So I think the best thing is to really focus on one's own self and make those changes so that when you get into those positions, that you can have a positive influence on others.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Wooly. Wait, I'm gonna forget.
It's okay. Take your time.
So I guess my question is there such thing as being too aware? So for instance, when I'm in solitude or if I'm in the outdoors, I feel a sense of awareness of being mindful, and I become grateful for where I am at that point. But when I'm presenting to, say, architect developers or city planners who are higher up, I become so aware of my heartbeat that it starts beating so much faster to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm getting even more nervous. Is there such thing as being too aware? And at what point do you stop being too aware of yourself?
Well, it seems like you are too aware, so there is such a thing, it seems like, as being too aware. I think that if you find yourself getting nervous before a presentation, then knowing that you're going to get nervous, you probably know which situations are going to make you nervous. I would just say take a few minutes before getting into that situation, compose yourself, and just calm yourself down and slow your heartbeat down and relax yourself and just understand that you're going to do the very best that you can, and that's all that you can really do. So just take a moment. Like I said, we do a lot of preparation in terms of our content. We get everything, we get our material ready, but do we get our mind ready? So get your mind and your emotions ready for that, and you'll, in that moment, be more present and more calm and relaxed, and then your heart maybe won't beat as fast as it would. So I think just taking that time to kind of compose yourself.
But what triggers that heartbeat to fasten the closer you are to presenting? Say, for instance, you're so relaxed in the beginning, but once you get on stage, there's a natural reoccurrence of that heartbeat.
Yeah, I mean, most people are afraid of public speaking. They say more people are afraid of that than people are afraid of death, right? So it's the thing that most people are afraid of. So that's a very natural thing. But just recognizing it, that it's happening, and trying to stay calm as best as you can. Again, preparing before, and remembering to just sort of take deep breaths even during your presentation. There's nothing wrong with that. Taking deep breaths, because when someone's panicking or in anxiety, we give them the advice, just take a deep breath. Well, we can give ourselves the same advice. When we get anxious, to take a deep breath even during the presentation. It's okay, because when we do take a deep breath, you notice the body does relax a little bit. So we can just becoming aware that, yes, I'm sort of anxious, and I'm going to take a deep breath right during the presentation, and that's okay. And it's just all about practice. The more you get up there and the more you do it, growing up, I had a huge fear of public speaking, believe it or not. I couldn't do it. I went all through high school basically avoiding it like the plague. And the only way I could overcome it is I just did it over and over and over again. Whenever the opportunity was there, I just did it because I knew that's the only way I was going to overcome it. So taking every opportunity to do it and taking time to calm your mind and heart down and taking deep breaths even during the presentation.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Hello, and thank you again for that lovely 10-minute meditation. So I'm a faculty member here at Cal Poly, and I have the great pleasure of teaching, thank you, I'm taller than others. I have the great pleasure of teaching mathematics, and particularly mathematics for future teachers, which tends to be a slightly stressful environment for my students to be in. And it really resonated with me when you were talking about communication, and in particular giving feedback. And if you're having to provide negative feedback, needing to counteract that with appreciation and having enough positives to balance, to continue to have the buy-in and open hearts and open minds of the people you're communicating with. So the short of this is that I'm curious if you have any perspectives for the educators in the room as far as existing in a system that still dictates that we give grades, and the challenges that can come with having to regularly give graded feedback to people in a high-stakes situation where, should they not perform as desired, then this is their future careers at stake, right? And the hopes and dreams of helping hundreds of children in their development. So, there's high stakes involved in what we're doing here with our students, and trying to figure out ways that I can translate the care and authenticity that I know that I have into something that my students can feel and experience in a way where, when I give them that, hand back that quiz where maybe they didn't pass, how am I going to still get their buy-in week after week after week?
I think it's more about just how we've interacted with them from the very beginning. Do we give off a vibe that we actually do care? With that, we're not just here to okay, here's the material and this is your grade. Because that can also be a vibe that people give off. Okay, I'm here to teach you. I'm not really concerned about your personal life. This is it, right? But being compassionate means being aware that students might be going through some stuff in their own personal life. So bringing ourselves to be caring enough and being sympathetic enough to that, so that the student at least feels it from us. That, yeah, teachers, they do care about me. How well they do or don't do, that's something that you can't control. And then to some degree, obviously, but when we've had that approach of compassion and being empathic in dealing with them, when we do then need to give that stronger feedback, I think they'll receive it very positively. Okay, I really need to get my act together, and my teacher has been caring for me, and this is also care. This is also care. But I think it's just our whole approach to them, that if it's been positive and caring and compassionate throughout, then I think they'll receive it in the best way possible. And it's not always going to be perfect, but they'll be more receptive to it than if we've just been sort of like teaching student, and I don't care what's happening in your life, and this is what you have to do, and if you don't do it, then you'll be part of this statistic. I think that's just from the very beginning, just sort of having that relationship with them. Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Hello. Thank you so much for your Principles of Mindful Leadership presentation. First off, it was awesome. My question is more on the career perspective, I suppose you could say. As someone that wants to do this herself and teach people mindful leadership skills, I saw that you were on NPR and you did TED Talks and you did PBS. Like, what career advice can you give for someone so that they too could share those things that they have on their bucket list and share that stage?
Well, one thing is you want to make sure that you practice very deeply what you're going to teach. I have a meditation practice, I meditate 2 hours every day. I've been doing that for 18 years. I'm not always mindful in the way that I act and speak, but I'm aware when I don't, and I try to improve on it. So before speaking, making sure that we are ourselves practicing mindfulness regularly. We don't want to give advice on things we're not even trying. And making sure not only are we practicing mindfulness, but we are constantly looking at ourselves, recognizing our weaknesses, and willing to make improvements. And I feel like if there's a genuine sincerity in our practice and our approach, I feel like the stages will open up. Like, all those things happened to me. A lot of them happened to me when I was a monk. I wasn't even trying for them. Somebody from NPR, some professor from the Columbia School of Journalism reached out to me, said an NPR reporter wants to interview a monk. I'm like, okay. I'll be honest with you. That happened. I was living in the monastery for 5 years. I barely even knew what NPR was, okay? So actually, when I was a monk, if Beyonce or LeBron James would have sat next to me, I wouldn't have had a clue who they were. I learned about them just a couple years ago when I moved out of the monastery. But my point is, practice sincerely before you teach. And if you do that from a sincere place, I think the stage and the doors will open.
Awesome, thank you.
I think we have time for one more, right? Yeah? Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Just really quickly, that was my professor, so I don't know where you are, but at least for me, you're doing a really great job. I go home and jot down future notes that I could do for my students. That's the class that I talk about the most to my friends. So you're doing, at least for me, there you go. But, so I guess for me, let me fix this. Okay, so at least for me, my question is that I tend to care a lot about my friends, but sometimes I care too much about everyone else that I tend to forget about myself. So I try to be a hero for everyone that I end up damaging myself in the end. And I just kind of want to know how do I fix that kind of mindset? Because it's kind of a reoccurring pattern. I will go and I will help out my friends as much as I can. I went to San Diego for 3 days to comfort a friend. I push myself sometimes, but with that being said, sometimes I always forget to think about myself. So how do I guess, change that mindset? Because I'm kind of tired of, going into this stoop where I'm I forgot who I am. Now, each night I'm very upset or something like that. So how would I just get into the habit of, finding that balance, I guess?
Well, first of all, I think it's an awesome quality to really, that you from your heart want to help people and you go out of your way. I don't think, if more of us could do that, I think the world would definitely be a much better place. And I hope that that part of you never leaves you till, for the rest of your life, that you want to keep going out and helping people and helping your friends. So I really hope that that just stays with you forever. At the same time, like you're saying, having that balance is one thing that you can remember the advice that the flight attendants give us: put your own mask on first before putting your next person's mask on. And so really asking yourself that, are you taking what you need to be strong? Strong enough to do what you need to do and to help yourself to make sure you're physically and emotionally strong. When I was a monk, I was always counseling people and talking to people. It was just people would sort of tell me all their problems. And I would always make sure and take time out for my own meditation, because I realized that if I'm not strong, then I'm not really going to be able to give myself thoroughly to them. And I don't want to be depleted, right? Because that's not service to me. It's serving to others, but also we have to look out for self-care. And so it's just something you're just going to have to work on. Really ask yourself that, okay, is this too much? Do I really need to hold this person's hand this much? So these are all things that you're going to have to ask yourself and analyze. After each situation, ask yourself, how did I do? Was it over the top? Now I can't even do my homework. Yes, then it was over the top. Or, oh, now I got sick because I was up for 4 nights in a row just consoling my friend. Could I have taken a little time and gotten some sleep, eaten food, and then gone back and been more present and more mindful of them? So I think the only way to improve is to keep analyzing how the last situation went and just think about it. How could you have changed it? How could it have been done differently? So that you can continue to help people for the rest of your life, because if you experience burnout just from helping people, then at some point you're like, forget it. I'm not helping anyone. It's all about me. Sometimes we go to extremes. A lot of times we work in extremes, this end or that end. So you don't want to end up at the other extreme where you stop helping people, because we all need people who help people. So just analyzing the situation and seeing how you could have done it differently. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And thank you all very much for your questions. Thank you.
So our guest will be signing autographs in the books over here on the table to this side of the room for the next few minutes, if you'd like to line up over here. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.